Hello everyone, welcome to this video lecture on non-destructive testing. So in the previous class, what we discussed was the methods of ultrasonic testing. We went into the basics of ultrasonic testing, the types of waves and all. Now uh, we'll be moving on to the topic of sound waves, the type of sound waves that are available. Now, as you know, the basic principles of sound. Sound is actually produced by a vibrating body. Any vibrating body can produce a sound, and it travels in the form of a wave. It's always traveling in the form of a wave. Now, these sound waves will always travel through the materials by vibrating the particles that make up the material. So, vibration of the particles are what causes the sound waves to travel. Now, all sound waves will have a certain pitch. That pitch of the sound is determined by the frequency of the wave. So, frequency will give you an idea of the pitch of the sound. Frequency is actually the number of cycles completed in a certain period of time or the number of vibrations. Ultrasound actually has a higher frequency, which means the ultrasound also has a higher pitch. The pitch is so high that we cannot, that is human ear cannot detect it properly. So as you can see here, we've shown the example of where a sound energy is produced. You have a hammer here. The hammer is striking a surface. So when it strikes the surface, the molecules get agitated. Agitated, they'll have energies. The stored energies will be then transmitted throughout. The molecules will undergo interactions, and hence due to these interactions and vibrational energy, the vibration energy due to the molecular interactions or atomic interactions actually between the atoms will causes the sound energy to travel. So this is how sound travels in a medium. Okay, it's in the form of a wave and it is due to the vibration of its molecules. Now, the propagation of a sound wave, you have to find out that the sound cannot propagate in a vacuum. It always it cannot travel in a vacuum. So its speed of the sound is zero actually in vacuum, and the sound energy sound energy is always transmitted or transferred from one particle to the other due to its vibrations or the transfer of vibration energy. All sound waves, which can be either audible or ultrasonic, are actually mechanical vibrations. This is the point that I've been emphasizing. So any audible or ultrasonic wave are actually consists of mechanical vibrations involving movement of the medium in which they are traveling, movement indicating the motion of the atoms or molecules. A sound wave is actually transmitted through any material and it behaves in an elastic manner. Right? Sound wave is actually can transmitted through any material except that through vacuum. It cannot travel in vacuum and always behaves in an elastic manner. There are three main types of waves: longitudinal waves, transverse or shear waves, and surface or rally waves and Lamb waves. First one, we'll again go through just the details of ultrasonic waves. Ultrasonic waves are actually similar to light waves in the fact that they can be reflected, refracted, and can be focused, similar to light waves. The reflection and refraction, they occur according to certain laws, and these occur when sound waves interacts with interfaces of different acoustic properties. That is, when the material is traveling through, it may come across interfaces that can have different properties, due to which at different locations reflection or refraction can occur. In solid material, the vibration energy can be split into different wave modes when they interact at an interface at an angle other than 90 degree. That is, if so for example, if a sound wave is traveling through a medium, it can come across several encounters. That is, it can have certain defects. So due to this, the vibration energy can be split into different wave modes. That is, once it is striking, it can undergo reflection, refraction, or it may even be absorbed. So this vibration energy will always be split into different wave modes when it is encountering a defect at an angle other than that of 90 degree. Now, ultrasonic reflections from the presence of discontinuities or geometric features enables its detection and location. The reflection, ultrasonic waves, the reflection from discontinuities helps us to identify them or find out the location where they're there. And the velocity of sound in a material, this this concept, the velocity of sound in a material is constant and only be altered by a change in the mode of energy. These are all the basic things that you have learned before. This is the exposure of an ultrasonic wave. Ultrasonic wave is passed through, as you can see, just like a light wave, it will undergo reflections and refractions throughout the surfaces. Okay, now we are going to move into different types of wave. First of all, we'll go through what is a longitudinal or a compression wave. In longitudinal waves, as you know, the molecules will undergo vibration. So In such waves, the displacement of the medium is in the same direction or the opposite direction to the direction of propagation of a wave. For example, you have a wave that goes in the horizontal direction. If it is moving in the horizontal direction, then the displacement of the atoms or the particles or the displacement of the medium is actually in the direction of the movement of that wave or opposite to the direction. So if this is the direction, right, I will show you just a direction here. So if this is the direction where the wave is moving, if this is the direction in which the wave is moving, you can see here that this is the movement direction of the wave. The medium will actually vibrate either in the same direction like this or opposite to the direction of the propagation of the wave. Now, it is a wave motion in which each particle of the medium, it will undergo simple harmonic motion about its mean position. This SHM motion will be either along the wave or along the direction of the movement of the wave or opposite to the direction of the movement of the wave. So anyway, the particles will undergo simple harmonic motion about its mean position along the direction or opposite to the direction of the wave. Now, mechanical longitudinal waves are also classified into compression waves, right? Compressional waves because they produce compression as well as rarefaction when they travel through a medium, and they are also classified as pressure waves because they can produce an increase or a decrease in the pressure. For example, sound waves in fluids. I'll show you a figure. This is the figure for a longitudinal wave, right? The particles of the medium will be vibrating in the form of SHM. It will undergo simple harmonic motion along the direction or opposite to the direction. Compression waves are there. As mentioned, there are also rarefaction waves, right? In the sound waves will undergo compression as well as rarefaction. So this is the wavelength corresponding that is shown here. This is another example of longitudinal waves. These are actually the compression waves where the molecules will vibrate closer to will vibrate SHM with a simple harmonic motion closer towards each other. This is also another example for a compression wave. And these are the rarefaction waves where there will be a gap. The molecules, individual molecules, will have a separation and will undergo SHM. Now we move on to the second type of wave, which is known as a transverse or a shear wave. A transverse wave is actually a moving wave that consists of oscillations that occur perpendicular to the direction of its propagation. For example, I'll show you an example. That is, if you have a wave like this and the wave is moving in the x direction, and this is the direction of propagation of the wave, then in the case of a transverse wave, we'll have particles that execute SHM right angles, right? It will be executing oscillations at SHM rather at right angle. So the angle will be 90 degree. This is the concept of a transverse wave. And if a transverse wave is moving in the positive x direction, then the oscillations are in the up and down. Oscillations will occur in the up and down direction perpendicular to the x direction, but in the YZ plane. As you can see, light is an example for a transverse wave, whereas sound is an example for longitudinal waves. A ripple in a pond or wave on the wave on a string, they can be visualized as transverse. They can also, that is, for example, a ripple in a pond. That is, if you throw a stone in a pond, ripples will occur, and also wave on a string, they can be also visualized as transverse wave. Now, this is the displacement versus distance direction for a transverse wave. It consists of a certain amplitude. The wavelength is also shown. The peaks at different locations, the troughs at different locations, the crest, and it's one complete cycle is also shown. Here, it will undergo, if this is the x direction, then the particles undergo a simple harmonic motion along perpendicular to the x direction. Now, the third type is actually surface or Rayleigh waves. And the surface or Rayleigh waves actually consist of they are also another classification. These waves represent an oscillating motion. That is, so there will also be an oscillating motion here that travels along the surface. It is traveling along the surface of the specimen, but with the condition that there is only a depth of one wavelength. Now, surface waves, therefore, they are essentially non-existent in a solid immersed in a fluid. That is, for example, if a solid is immersed in a fluid, unless the liquid covers the solid surface only as a very thin layer, you cannot expect to have surface waves. These surface waves can be used to detect surface cracks in a test specimen. Now, this is actually the direction of propagation of the sound waves. It occurs along the surface, and it will have the particles. They do not undergo simple harmonic motion, but the particle vibration follows an elliptical orbit, and this is the propagation. That is, so these are again sound. These are vibrational energies being transmitted along the surface. Now, we come to plate or lamb waves. These are surface waves that propagate parallel to the test surface and have a particle motion that is elliptical. These occur when the thickness of the test specimen is only a few wavelengths at the test frequency, whereas a test specimen should have uniform thickness. Now there are two types of Lamb waves. There are symmetric Lamb waves and asymmetric Lamb waves. In symmetrical Lamb waves, they move in a symmetrical fashion. That is, there is a symmetry. If you have an axis here, they'll have a symmetry there. And this is also called extension mode because the wave is stretching and compressing in the wave motion direction. There will be compression as well as stretching in the wave motion direction. Then the second category is the asymmetric Lamb wave. It is also known as flexural mode because a large portion of the motion is in a normal direction to the plate. That is, the motion of the molecules will be normal to the direction of the plate, and little motion occurs in the direction parallel to the plate. In this mode, the body of the plate bends as the two surfaces move in the same direction. Now we move on to the wave types. In longitudinal waves, to have a brief overview, in longitudinal waves, the particle vibration is parallel to the wave direction. In transverse, they are perpendicular to the wave direction. In surface or Rayleigh waves, elliptical orbit or symmetrical mode will be there, and in Lamb waves, component is perpendicular to the surface. Now travels perpendicular to the surface. Now we move on to the different ultrasonic testing methods. Now ultrasonic testing is a versatile testing method that we've discussed before. It's a versatile testing method, and inspections can be accomplished on any type of material, and it can be done in different ways. Now ultrasonic inspection techniques are mainly classified into three different types. One is the pulse testing method, second one is the true transmission technique, and third one is the resonance testing method. Now first of all, we'll be going through the pulse echo method. In pulse echo method, this is one of the most common methods in ultrasonic testing. The transmitter and the receiver are placed on the same side of the component. If it is on the top side, we'll be placing the transmitter and receiver on the top. If it is through the sides, then the transmitter and probes will be on the same side. That is, wherever you are putting the transmitter, at that location also, or at a certain distance apart, we'll also be putting the receiver probes also there on the same side. And so the presence of a defect is indicated by the reception of an echo. That is, when you release a sound wave, it will travel through, and once it finds a defect, that sound wave is reflected back in the form of an echo. That echo is received by the receiver, and also the waves that do not undergo any reflections on it will reach the bottom surface and hit back. So you're getting two sound waves reflected back. One is from the back wall and one is from the defect. So you can compare and find out the extent of the defect. So these signals are given to the CRT screen, and it's calibrated to show the separation in distance between there is a distance actually between the time of arrival of a defect echo and the time of arrival of a back echo. Therefore the location of the defect can be accessed easily. Now this is the transmitter and receiver at the same location. This is the transmission pulse, and this is the back wall pulse if there is no defect. If there is a small defect, there will be a small defect, and if there will be a larger defect, then the defect echo will be much larger. Now again, this is again we move on to the same pulse echo method. Single probe sends a single probe is there that sends and receives the sound signal. It gives an indication of defect depth and dimensions. It's not a fail-safe method. Okay, we'll go through the procedures for the pulse echo technique. That a specimen, it is cleaned properly in order to conduct ultrasonic testing. A pulse generator is used to generate the pulse of a required frequency, and it is transferred through the specimen. The generated pulse is actually transmitted through the transducer, and it will undergo, if there are any defects at all, echo signals will be developed, and the reflected wave is received by the same transducer which has the receiver unit inside. The different types of received pulses is amplified using an amplifier, and it is compared in a CRO display unit, and these are plotted against time, and we can find the location of the defect. This was earlier mentioned. Now we go through the second method. This is the true transmission method. This is actually the opposite of the pulse echo method. In the pulse echo method, the transmitter and the receiver probes were in the same location, but now the transmitter and the receiver probes are actually on the opposite sides. So two types of probes are used. One is the transmitter probe, and the second one is the receiver probe. It is a fail-safe method. It can be used as a fail-safe method. Now the transmitter probe will be on one end, and the receiver probe will be on the opposite end. Now in this method,
this is much more a better method in order to find the defect. In this method, the presence of the internal defect is indicated by a reduction in signal. That is, if you are transmitting here and the receiver is at the other end, this is the transmitted pulse, and this is the pulse that is received at the receiver side. Now, if there are no defects, then two peaks are observed. But if there is at all a peak is there, sorry, if there are a defect is there, then it will be indicated by a smaller peak. And if there is a larger defect, as that sound is not transmitted throughout, then there will not be any other peaks other than the transmitted one. So we can easily find defects if there are there, because this defect is actually indicated by the reduction in signal strength or amplitude, or in case of gross defects, there is a complete loss in the transmitted signal. So no peaks will be observed if the defect is large enough. So this is a better method. Now, there are two cases. One without any defects, transmitter and receiver. This is the first case. This is the transmitted pulse and this is the received pulse after attenuation and all. And in the second case, you have a transmitter and a receiver, but there is a flaw here. Due to the flaw, there is a signal strength or amplitude is reducing. So at the receiver end, you are getting a smaller peak, which indicates the presence of a defect. Now, we'll again discuss the procedures. As in the previous case, there are two transducers are placed on opposite side of the surface of the test specimen. Among the two transducers, one is used to transmit the sound waves and the other one is used to receive them. Results can be seen in a CRT display. The specimen without any defect has no loss in sound transmitted, has no loss in the transmitted sound waves. The specimen which has a defect will have a loss in the transmitted sound wave, so it will be reflected in the graphs by short peak pulses. This method can be done efficiently by using a couplant in order to avoid the losses in sound waves due to separation between the surfaces. Now, you have an advantage. We have different advantages and disadvantages. There are less attenuation, no probe ringing, no dead zone, orientation doesn't matter, and also disadvantages. The defect cannot be properly located in certain cases. Smaller defects, so very small defects can't be identified. Vertical defects, there will be limitation that vertical defects don't show. It must be automated and also needs access to both surfaces. Now, this is again the transmitter and receiver end. This is also one of the types, transmitter and receiver, not on the same location but on different locations on the same surface. This is also known as a tandem technique or a pitch and catch technique. Now, we move on to the last method, which is the resonance method. Now, resonance method is mainly used to determine the thickness of a test specimen, apart from finding the defects. Resonance condition is actually reached. This resonance condition reaches whenever the thickness of a material is equal to the half of the wavelength of the sound, right, or any multiple thereof in that material. The control of wavelength is achieved by controlling the frequency of the wave. This is more suitable for harder materials. Now, actually we can find the thickness of the specimen if we know the velocity, right? Velocity of the ultrasound in the specimen and the frequency. So knowing the fundamental frequency f and the velocity of ultrasound, we can easily find the thickness of the specimen. And it is difficult to recognize the fundamental mode of vibration. It is very difficult to find out if it is vibrating in the first mode or the second mode. The fundamental frequency is usually calculated from the difference of two adjacent harmonics, which are depicted by adjacent rises in the pulse amplitude. This pulse amplitude will be shown in your graphs. So velocity divided by 2 times frequency at the nth harmonic minus the frequency at the nth minus 1 harmonic. Now, this method can also help in finding the thickness, and also it can help in finding the defects in certain cases. It is used for inspecting large ingots and castings, particularly when there is high attenuation, that is the loss of sound waves by using traditional systems. When the loss of sound waves is too high, we can use these methods. And also when there are gross large size defects which are present, this method does not give size and location of the defect. It will give you the thickness of the specimen but not the size and the location of the defect. In addition, good mechanical coupling and alignment of the probes are essential. Now, this is actually the resonance technique. This is the large ingots that are being used on the test specimen. Transducers are there, and the specimen is moved in this direction. The transducer and receivers are there. High frequency oscillators and pulse amplifiers helps in getting the signal on the CRT tube. This is the resonance testing technique. Now we move on to the advantages and disadvantages of ultrasonic testing. In advantages, we can see some main points, which is the method is sensitive to small discontinuities, both surface as well as subsurface. So we can easily find the discontinuities just below the surface. The depth of the penetration for flow detection or measurement is superior to the other methods. So for larger depth also we can use it. Only single-sided access is needed when pulse echo technique is used. High accuracy is there in determining the reflector position and estimating the size and shape. Minimal part preparation is required, not much cleaning needed, indicating electronic equipment provides instantaneous results. Detailed images can be produced with automated system and has other uses such as thickness measurement can also be found out in addition to flow detection. So thickness measurement can also be done in addition to finding out the defects. Now there are also certain limitations. The first of them being the surface must always be accessible to transmit the ultrasound. Skill and training is more extensive than with other methods. Normally requires a coupling medium to promote transfer of sound energy. That is, you need to provide or transfer better sound energy into the test specimen. So coupling devices are highly essential or normally is needed. So for better transmission. Materials that are very rough or irregular in shape, very small, exceptionally thin, and non-homogeneous, they are used to inspect. Inspection is actually difficult because of the non-uniformity. Cast iron and other coarse grain materials are difficult to inspect. That is because of sound attenuation. There is high sound attenuation, so transmission efficiency is low and a high signal noise. Linear defects that are oriented parallel to the sound beam may also undergo they'll always be undetected. Now reference standards are also required for both equipments and calibrations and also for the characterization of flows. Now these are the advantages and disadvantages. So we come to the end of this topic. In the next topic we'll be discussing more concepts regarding ultrasonic testing. Thank you.